and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at the economic situation of the country and taking an in-depth analysis of what is going on. Of course, the speculations and talk, unfortunately, with regards to economic uncertainty and default is still on the rise, despite reiterations by the Finance Ministry, the Prime Minister and other leaders as well that keep on emphasizing that Pakistan is not close to a default. This is again something that the Finance Minister has clarified and has spoken about, saying that there is going to be no economic emergency in the country and that the talks with the IMF regarding the 9th review are at an advanced stage, and that is something that Pakistan is also hopeful about. As far as the inflow of cash is concerned within the country as well, the Finance Ministry keeps pointing out various developments with regards to friendly countries also pouring in money, and that Pakistan will be able to uphold all its commitments with regards to the IMF and of course other international commitments as well. And of course, when we take a look at the current economic situation, the energy needs of the country is something of major concern, especially in the winter months, and especially now in the aftermath of the devastating floods, the kind of political uncertainty that Pakistan had witnessed and the global impact that has been made on Pakistan through the kind of international changes that are affecting everyone. All of that is, of course, creating a lot of uncertainty and pressure on where we stand right now and where we're moving ahead. But Pakistan has successfully also been able to gain support from Russia with regards to the import of crude oil, petrol and diesel at discounted rates, something that the Petroleum Minister has confirmed recently in a press conference after their visit to Russia, and have spoken about how that's going to help with Pakistan's energy needs. More than that, we also know that there is also an announcement of LPG coming in from Iran as well, and the way that, of course, Pakistan will be taking a look in the rest of the fiscal year with the current developments, and then moving forward, the kind of plan that is going to be there is going to be important in terms of being able to understand where exactly will be the kind of challenges and hindrances that the government will have to tackle, again with some very tough decisions. We also know, of course, that the kind of food security crisis that exists is on the rise, and Pakistan has a lot of concern in reference to that as well, something that the Finance Minister has confirmed with regards to the import of 450,000 tons of wheat also from Russia. And when we take a look at such developments, especially with regards to bilateral engagements, there are other countries that are also being taken on board. Furthermore, the important stakeholders with regards to IMF have also been explained the current situation and the kind of challenges that Pakistan has had to face, and the Finance Minister has met with at least 3 of them to talk about the kind of commitments that exist at the moment and what Pakistan wants to be doing moving ahead. This, of course, will be an important step forward in terms of the 9th review and in terms of bringing down the kind of uncertainty that exists. The rupee, unfortunately, has been on a downward trend for the past 3 consecutive days, so we're going to be taking a look at the factors regarding that as well, and of course other major concerns for the public of Pakistan, including inflation and the rising prices of commodities. So that is going to be the focus of our show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farooq Patafi, and we've also been joined by industrialist Mr. Mohammed Adnan Jadid in the studios as well. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us and being a part of the debate. We're also going to be joined on telephone line by economist Mr. Saddam Hussain, who's going to be a part of the debate as well. But let me start with you, Jadid Saab. Considering, of course, the kind of economic situation that currently exists, what the public wants to understand is clarity in terms of where we stand and where we're going. We all know the way that 2022 has transpired, not only in terms of the domestic issues that Pakistan has had to face, and also, of course, the natural catastrophe that has hit the country, but also in terms of the global indicators that continue to affect Pakistan and other countries as well. Considering, of course, that there have been many tough decisions that the government has had to make, and perhaps many more are yet to come, where do you currently see the economic situation of the country, especially in terms of the speculations of default?
Okay, thank you for having me. If you look into the global recession, the recession is not only in Pakistan, it's a global recession. After every 15 years, the world goes into the recession. And it has happened many times before, and it's going to happen next, is happening now, and it's going to happen in the future also. Where Pakistan stands in a very weak pitch. because we do not have much dollars, we do not have much strength in our economy, and we are facing a huge inflationary factors. Other countries are also facing the same problem, but they are economically very strong compared to Pakistan, because we owe a lot of money to the world, and we have to pay a lot of payment because our budget has a huge amount of repayments every year. So we don't have much cushions left within the budget for our expenditures like health, education, and development. So I think we are trapped in catch 22, and this is the chain reaction which is happening not here this time, but it is since the independence, Pakistan economy has not been governed in a very professional manner, and we have been facing rupee depreciation all the times. Whenever there has been something, whenever we have gone for the loan or anything, the direct pressure has come on the Pakistani rupees, and by the virtue of making the rupees free float and free float, Pakistani currency, Pakistani economy never had strength to sustain that free float rupees sustainability. So that has put a lot of pressure on us, and because of the less dollar we have, bad economy we have, bad indicators we have, I think it will be very difficult to sustain rupees even in the future, and that the more the rupee is going to devalue, the more inflationary factor will take place in the economy, because Pakistan economy is just a dollar-based economy.
Right, absolutely. But as far as, of course, where we stand right now and what is of utmost importance is, of course, to be able to get out of the current economic crisis. And for that, perhaps, yet again, the IMF bailout package is of huge importance to Pakistan. And there is a lot of uncertainty with regards to the ninth review and why there is such delay in talks. Is that something that is normal and expected, and that what, of course, we see from the finance ministry coming in, the talks are underway, is just a matter of concern with regards to the kind of indicators that need to be analyzed, especially post the floods?
Well, unfortunately, the flood has caused a lot of commotion this year. This was very unexpected, and that bill have been ranging anything from 25 to 35 billion dollar, and this is amount which will be very difficult for Pakistan to gather it. And the friendly countries and the world is giving grants and funds to Pakistan, but that is not that substantial. So I think how we gonna arrange that money, eventually 30 billion plus dollar, then we have a repayment next year of 22 billion dollar external loans, and then we have internal loans of 8 billion. So 30 billions is a payment to the world. You have to make it next year. So I think this is we need a balance, we need a budget of, we need a collection of nearly 70, 80 billion dollars. We need it to survive next year. Otherwise, the situation will be far more tense and disturbed even into 2023.
Absolutely. Farooq, an important development, of course, is with regards to what the petroleum minister had announced is that Russia is going to be giving us crude oil, petrol and diesel at discounted rates. And this is something that we have been hoping for quite some time now. Yeah. When this actually does transpire, what sort of impact do you think it's going to have on our energy needs at the moment, and then, of course, on the larger economic situation?
Right, Sana, I'm going to address that question as well. It is a very important one, because Pakistan has been actually, most of our foreign spending is especially on procurement of oil or energy-related, materials. So, because of that, of course, there has been a flight of, dollar from Pakistan. When you are dealing with Russia, many modalities still have to be worked out, particularly regarding currency also, what currency is going to be used, whether it is China's currency that will be accepted, whether Pakistan is even on the list of those countries that are actually trading in Chinese yuan. So these are questions which are important. Then, of course, the quality of Russian oil, because India might be importing it, but India has had dependence on Russian oil. Because of that, they have refineries that particularly actually focus on that. We'll have to actually figure it out as we go along. But I wanted to actually address the earlier questions as well, because economy is a serious matter. It seems that when you talk about our media and our punditry, we keep on talking about the possibility of default. I don't understand why there is so much fixation. It hasn't been for the first time that the country's foreign currency reserves has shrunken to or dipped to this level. Then there is a lot of commitment as well. Regarding foreign cooperation with Pakistan, regarding particularly the flood affectees and all those issues, I think the biggest concern so far has been the world community has been asking us to produce a coherent plan. Earlier, the concern was we hadn't actually taken stock of what exactly have we lost and how much money do we need. Then, thanks to World Bank, thanks to EU, other partners, UNDP as well, we finally have a number, and we know that 33 billion is kind of basic ballpark where exactly we have to actually find liquidity. Now, IMF has demanded that Pakistan actually comes up with a plan and actually integrate that accounting issue with your current plan. So that will take a little bit of time, but we are on it. Especially, yesterday the finance minister met the ambassadors of 3 very important voters on the board of IMF. That is China, the US, and UK. There are 3 others that we are going to look at: Germany, Japan, and France. If we actually, convince them all, I think that the news so far is good. Then we get the kind of leeway that is needed regarding IMF's package as well, and some kind of breathing space for our commitments in coming days. But eventually, it seems that we'll have to actually actively seek out rescheduling of some of the loans, particularly with China.
Right, Jadid Saab, considering that the floods and in the aftermath of those floods, the kind of assessments and data that is required, the kind of time, as Farooq was pointing out, regarding the plan to be able to move forward with the recovery challenges that is needed, surely that is something that the IMF also understands. And we keep on also hearing about how these aspects are considered by the IMF and that they are reasonable with regards to such issues. Why is it then that there is still a concern or a sort of urgency from the IMF in terms of an expectation from Pakistan that this is something that they'll have to fulfill? Is that the scenario at the moment?
If you go to the bank or the fund to get money, then obviously you have to fulfill all the requirements before taking the money. So I think as we have taken 3.88 billion rupees so far from the IMF, so I think we have signed a lot of documents. We have to fulfill all the conditionalities.
But the situation changed,
The situation changed, but I think still what we see, if we start getting a good news from IMF and other donors to whom we have to pay back next year or now, so if they reschedule our loans for another 5-10 years, if they without any extra penalty, so I think that will be a good sentiment for the market, and the stock market and the rupees may gain something on that.
Jalil sir, should Pakistan also be approaching a Paris Club for rescheduling?
Maybe if they have to, they should do it, because the problem is that what option do you have? You do have very limited options, and you have to have this $30 billion of dollars, especially the $22 billion, which is external payable loans next year, that need to be rescheduled unless you don't have the money to pay back. Yeah. So I think that need to be done. And
but there's a counter argument to that. It is said that most of the liabilities that are due are not towards Paris Club. So the overall rescheduling benefit, which we might actually go for, is 1.5 or 1.4 billion dollars. Instead of that, perhaps talking to China might be a better option. But do you think that we should try it on every front? Because usually when you reschedule, there's going to be some kind of cost effects also.
I personally think, this is my view, that we should look into all the opportunities available in the world, because when we have taken few loans from China, for that we are paying up to 17-18% of the interest, which is quite high. So I think Pakistan cannot afford to pay such a huge interest in dollars. So I think we have to look into the different vistas and avenues where we can look for the reasonable amount of loans at a very discounted rate. And we are, as I said earlier, we are in a doldrum. We have to We have to come up with the magic words and magic phenomena where we have to readjust our economy in such a manner that we can pay back the liabilities, the internal, the external. Plus, we have to day-to-day expense the government is having it to run this government.
Right. Jalil Sahab, also when we talk about especially the flood damages, and this was also something that was part of the agenda, thankfully, in COP27, and of course due to Pakistan's efforts as well. And because of that, there has been some sort of agreement with regards to financing countries like Pakistan in terms of the kind of loss and damages that occur and to support them. Will that conversation also help in terms of our talks underway with the IMF, and what sort of contribution do you think that is going to play within this 9th review and then in the overall economic conditions as well?
I think what happened in Egypt, the COP27, I think that will give us sympathetic sentiments to the IMF. I think the world has realized that their fault has inflicted into Pakistan. We have suffered tremendously, and this I hope not, but this may not repeat in the future because the glaciers are melting very fast. So I think the world must realize that they should, I mean, this is my view, that I was in the seminar and I had my point to the World Bank. They must realize that they should write off 50% of our external loans, because we are not in a position to pay back, especially after the flood. So if they are not going to write off our external loans, then how are we going to manage the flood effect? So I think the world must, and they should realize on a humanitarian ground that Pakistan is facing a national calamity, and Pakistan needed a lot of support financially and otherwise.
Right. Farooq, earlier this year also we were banking a lot on our talks with the IMF and for this bailout package to proceed further for not just this particular development within the country to help us, but also in terms of how that was also going to impact our bilateral engagements and other debts from other countries as well, and what sort of help we can expect from countries. Right now, if we're still thinking about and trying to move towards the 9th review, of course, the impact of that is still there that we want to be able to achieve. But is there also are there also other aspects that are sort of stuck because of this 9th review being delayed?
Right, and yeah, of course, that is a very sane assessment of how things are, because it is not merely that IMF is the lender of last resort. It is also a certifier. It is also a doctor that you go to for obtaining a clean bill of health, right? So without their certification, there will be problems. We know that in the past it used to be only IMF's aligned, IFIs, international financial institutions. Now even our friendly countries like Saudi Arabia have also asked us to obtain this certification. So the moment we get that, things will become incredibly easier. Remember that when you talk about Pakistan's crises, many of them are imaginary, many of them are in reality there. But only 2 weeks ago, it seemed that regarding appointment of army chief, there was a crisis in the country. Now every news report that comes from Rawalpindi or the new army chief is very heartening. And you know that there is no crisis at all. So similarly, when you talk about economics, here too, earlier Jalil Sahab was saying glaciers are melting very fast. So my understanding from the P block and the Q block is that perhaps one glacier that is not melting very fast is IMF. But in the past, we have seen IMF actually contributing a lot, especially in the days of COVID. At that time, they relaxed all the terms. They also, provided you with billions of dollars worth of SDR support. And even our health plans, because there was some kind of focus on that after COVID actually arrived in Pakistan regarding health card and so many things. At that time, they were very conciliatory. At this moment, the problem is that the world might have different kind of problems and Pakistan has different kind of issues. The world might be actually focusing at this moment inflation, while we keep on hearing the reports of possibility of a slowdown or a recession. but in America, job creation is touching the sky. They have a high, lowest level of unemployment rate right now as we speak. But in Pakistan, Sana, the problem is that there have been, conspiracy of circumstances such that we are facing a stagflation like situation where you don't have that kind of jobs, and then economy is also the inflation is very high as well. So we'll have to actually first of all try to find some kind of solution. My concern is if you want to close the gap between spending and earnings, you'll have to start offloading SOEs, state-owned enterprises, especially like the steel mill, as quickly as possible.
Right, and Jalil Sahab, I'd like to hear your views on that as well, what needs to be done regarding SOEs, and also in the larger context, we keep on hearing about energy conservation measures as well, and again the finance minister also spoke about this, and the austerity measures also in place, but how much of an impact are those measures going to have on the current situation? Don't we need to take perhaps more drastic measures to overcome this?
Austerity measure can be taken place, but I mean to what extent? Because you can't stop the electricity, the heating, the cooling, the traveling. So I mean, you have to offload your losses enterprises like SME Bank. I was a part of the SME Bank for 7 years, and they are in Chapter 11 from the last so many years, and neither they are privatizing that bank, neither they are letting it work in a proper manner. So I think the government must and should make a very immediate decision what they have to do with this country, whoever will be there in the government, because the things are lingering on in this country. You can't make decisions. I mean, you need to reduce your liabilities on your hand. You have to restructure your bureaucracy. You have to restructure yourself in such a manner that, because the world is moving in a digitalization. So I think rather than having 20 PNs, 20 drivers, high, very complex bureaucratic hierarchy you have, I think the time has come, the Pakistan must and they should restructure themselves in such a manner by using the technology that there should be a reduction in the expenses, and there should be more avenues should be open for the business. Unfortunately, Pakistan has a very bad relation with their neighbors. Unfortunately, we are not availing properly the SAFTA. We are not within the SAARC countries. We are not doing any business, unfortunately. So I think Pakistan has to think in a very broader horizon now, where Pakistani should be, because under the circumstances where the imports have been reduced tremendously. Now, if you go into the export, if you go into the production, 38 to 40% of the raw material has to be imported. So if you're going to reduce the imports, then obviously it will affect the export and the local production. That will bring more pressure into the rupees and inflation and unemployment. So I think that the time has come that Pakistan must have a direct trade with the neighboring countries and the local currency, and whatever the political difference Pakistan may have with neighboring country, but the trade economics must take place on a most urgent basis. And the Central Asia is a very big market, and after Taliban, the growth of exports have been increased a little bit because they are moving from Torkham to Tashkent, I think.
Right.
So I think we have to either have a number one, new avenues, new markets, and the marketing of Pakistan has to take place, because unfortunately we have not market ourselves very positively.
Right,
globally.
absolutely, and that's an important aspect, and we'll talk more about that, but we'll take a short break right now and be back with the discussion. Welcome back to the debate. We're talking about the current economic situation in Pakistan and what aspects are affecting it and what needs to be done moving forward. And an aspect that we left when we took the break was with regards to Pakistan being able to market itself and be able to talk about its current position and gain access with regards to its neighbors and other countries in the world as well. And Farooq, of course, in terms of rejection, that is an issue from an individual to perhaps states that is an important one in terms of gaining any sort of engagement with other countries or other entities. And perhaps this is something that we did actually successfully do in terms of the climate crisis and in terms of the aftermath of the floods, what Pakistan needed to do in terms of presenting its case to the world. And we have seen the results of that effort as well. Why is it that similar efforts can't be put with regards to our ability to engage different businesses, different entities and different countries with regards to the economic impact that that's going to have?
You're talking about local businesses or international?
No, local
business?
and international.
Yeah, regarding international business, I recall one statement that came from General Musharraf, who was also actually recalling a statement that was given to him by Chinese Prime Minister regarding investors. And it was that, investors are like birds. Whenever there's a fire or some kind of explosion, they all fly away together. But when they are returning, they don't come together simultaneously. One scout actually comes and tries to actually take sense. After that, gradually, patiently, they start coming back. So the biggest problem with Pakistan has been that, as I was putting it earlier, conspiracy of circumstances. For 20 years, we have been fighting a war where law and order situation was a big issue. And there was a time when India was, moving up and up. And India's growing power and leverage meant that some kind of veto was also exercised regarding investment in Pakistan. Many movies were not released in Pakistan because their clearinghouse was in India. And India wanted to actually tell us that they had everything in their control. So that is one aspect that is there. But of course, then what you have witnessed in past few months is also an example. The way we fight with each other and we don't, hold any hostages, keep any hostages, that becomes a problem as well. Now, gradually things are stabilizing, hopefully, politically at least, that we don't expect any major sit-ins in Islamabad or any kind of, rock and roll competition in Islamabad streets.
Okay.
So then perhaps things are going to stabilize and then we can negotiate or pitch to the world as well. But earlier, Jalil Sahab was talking about two things that are quite intriguing. He said the need for a restructuring and to save money. And my humble submission is my understanding of how our bureaucracy has been working in the past 70 years. In order to restructure, you need more money, not less money. There used to be a 50-50, actually 3/3 skit also about this, that when they were trying to actually right size, they doubled the workforce just to ensure that right sizing takes place. So that is a big issue that we have got, and we'll have to find a way, a creative way to approach the matter. The second thing is SAFTA and South Asia. I think that there have been times when Pakistan could have been blamed for a lot regarding its neighbors, but this is not the time of that sort. For past 7-8 years, I've heard everyone from Islamabad to Rawalpindi and elsewhere talking consistently, previous army chief, previous prime minister, the current prime minister, the prime minister before the two, everyone used to talk about the need to work with India, and repeated offers of negotiations and repeated offers of resumption of bilateral trade and cooperation. Unfortunately, the Indian government is not in a listening mode, and that is because it is a populist government. Perhaps it wants to do business with us, but they have actually tried to freeze Pakistan out of the SAARC arrangement. Now, I don't know any magic or telekinesis that can work on New Delhi If there was one, I would be very interested to learn about it, because then through magic perhaps we can convince them to start normalizing with us.
Right, and Jalil Saab, I'd love to hear your response to that as well. But in terms of the way that the political situations, not especially also domestically, but also internationally, impact any decision that countries are making, and any sort of economic impact that we may look forward to, is an important concern. And we have seen a lot of uncertainty with regards to the political situation within Pakistan, especially since the start of this year, and then also in the decades before. And because of that, we haven't really been able to move forward with the kind of economic planning or strategizing that is needed, that can be ensured, whose continuation can be ensured, so that we are able to successfully move towards a path that will take us away from this vicious cycle of going back to the IMF again and again. And because of this, of course, we require changes at the political front as well. But because these two are so interrelated, how do we even start moving forward towards a kind of economic assurance that is needed, a kind of economic plan that is needed to put in place, what the Prime Minister has referred to as a Charter of Economy also? How can we move towards that if we don't have a political setup or in place which can give us the certainty to work towards this? And then, of course, the international aspect as well.
Okay, what Pakistan does need very immediately is a long-term vision, and a long-term vision in a real sense. We do not need to have a vision which is defined by one government and the next government change it and they bring their own vision. So as a Charter of Economy, all the political parties, we are talking about Pakistan. Pakistan is facing a lot of problems. The business communities are suffering, and obviously it has a trickle-down effect on the layman. So what Pakistan does need is a good 30-40 years Charter of Economy. All the political parties, despite their differences, they should sit for the sake of this country, and they should sit and make a policy. Then whoever runs this country, the policy should not be changed, because unfortunately Pakistan has not received any relevant FDIs over the last few years. So I mean, if the situation will be like this, who is going to invest? Even the Pakistani, there is a capital flight, or even the Pakistani investors are taking their money out of the country and they're investing somewhere else because money is shy. It's my money. I want to make money off it. I want to make my own profit on it. So it's my prerogative where I can put this money. If Pakistan is not an ideal situation for the investment, then obviously I will move it somewhere else where I can get a better ROI. So I think, and there are many opportunities available in the world in a very stable economies. So I think that this, after 75 years of independence, the Pakistan must realize two things. Who is going to govern this country? Number one, right man for the right job. So the democracy should prevail in true spirit, and they should govern this country and they should be responsible for the good or the bad. Number one. Number two, that the vision should be there. Whoever is there, the vision and the policy should not be changed, because if you want to bring some investment into Pakistan and tomorrow the government changes, they say, okay, now our SROs is going to be changed, our interest rate is going to be. So I think under this kind of uncertainty, nobody is going to come and invest in Pakistan. So I think we must sit together and for the sake of this country, because we have to give a bright future to the future of to the upcoming generation of this country. So what are we giving it to them?
Absolutely, and these are important concerns, and of course we all share them, but again the solution still seems to be pointing towards what should or must be done, and because of that I still want to understand exactly how we're going to be able to move towards that, since it doesn't seem like we're moving in that direction. And because of this, Farooq, and I'll take your input as well, Lisa. Because of this, Farooq, it seems that whenever we talk about these issues, we understand that this is the way forward, but considering the variables involved, why isn't it that we're talking about how we're going to address those variables in order to achieve these shoulds?
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about those variables when Jalil Saab first was actually addressing the need for stability and actually sticking to one course, right, picking one lane. And after that, he immediately spoke about democracy and how we need democracy or solid democracy. The problem with democracy, Sana, is that it is always chaotic. It is always messy. Although there is a lot of public ownership of democracy, and that's why the government can do impossible tasks, right? And that's why it is so important. And then, of course, transition of power is also very smooth from one government to another, because it is through ballot box rather than guns or any kind of street agitation. So democracy is important, but then we know that in most of the most parts of the world, even in the US and Europe, democracy seems to be producing more polarized polity, and because of that, hung parliaments. So on one side, I want to actually believe that democracy should prevail in this country, and I'm going to tell you why democracy might find a way. But on the other, this expectation, right man for the right job, is nearly impossible in parliamentary democracy, because then you have electables who come to the parliament, and you have to actually pick and choose from that limited options, rather than any presidential system. Now what is happening in Pakistan at this moment seems to be consolidation on the two sides of divide. The fact that PTI actually might be coming into its own, but then we have seen that these coalition partners that are here right now ruling the country, they have also moved closer. It wasn't the case in 1990s. For a long time, it seemed that People's Party and PMLN's fighting will impact the economy or the country badly. But now it seems that they have some working relationship which is reliable, and at this moment, heads of two parties are actually simultaneously sitting in the same cabinet. Prime Minister is head of PMLN, and the Foreign Minister is head of People's Party. So there is a possibility that in coming days we are going to have a better quality of parliament and a better consolidated majority. India is one example where they had hung parliaments for so much time. I mean, 90s and 2000s, it was impossible for a single party to form government. They might have chosen Narendra Modi, doesn't inspire any confidence in me, but through him, through that lightning rod, they finally managed to manufacture the kind of majority they needed. Now it is clear that the country is going to has picked a lane. Whatever it is, they are moving in that direction. So I think that in coming days, we are going to have some kind of stability and maturity in democracy.
Okay.
And that means whether it is one side of parliament or the other, we will have some clear direction, hopefully.
Okay, of course, that is the hope, and Jalil Sahab, you can add to that, but since we're short on time, let me also put another question, and if you could respond to that too. When we talk about, of course, the kind of hindrances that exist in terms of more investors coming in Pakistan, there are these political aspects that are there, and the uncertainty that is, of course, a concern. But I want to understand if, given the situation that there is potential certainty, there is the kind of hope that we require and the kind of atmosphere that is needed for investors to come in, is everything else right on track in terms of the kind of procedures, in terms of the kind of groundwork and foundations that the investors require? Because it seems that a lot of blame immediately goes to the uncertainty, and that's there, but have we prepared everything else?
I think still a long way to go, because dealing with because the red tapeism is at the highest level in Pakistan, despite the Pakistan single window is trying to do something in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa with SMEDA, and the chambers have come up with the portal called the Ease of Doing Business. But I think still you have to deal with the people. When you deal with the people, then many other things which is required, which is not supposed to be required, you have to do it. I think setting up a company might be very easy, but run a company in Pakistan will be very difficult, because you have to deal with many departments, and we all understand how the things works in Pakistan. I think we have to have a total structure changes eventually. I don't know how long is that going to take, but things are getting bad to worse, because if you really want the investors should come, then they should not be tortured, they should not be disturbed all the time by the wrong SROs or wrong notices from the various departments. And we have to reduce the number of ministries which deal with the industries, which deal with the business community. It used to be about 80, if I'm not wrong, but now it has knocked down to 35, 37, but still it's too much. I think here we are talking about a single phase where the government should deal with the industry through a single window and this vice versa. I think we are not a very ideal country for the investment right now. Let's be very factual on that. So to attract the investment, then you have to do something out of the box to attract people. Okay, why people should come here? Because I'm not going to bother you. It will take 7 days to set up your company. You will not be disturbed by nobody will ask you your money. You will not, the government will not disturb you. A certain amount you have to have here, invest, take it back home. So, the big problem is coming with the airline industries now. Since May and June of this year, they are not remitting their money back into their headquarters. So, I think all the airline sector is facing this problem. If this sector is this problem prevails, God forbid the foreign airlines will stop their operations into Pakistan. So, I think now we don't have the dollars to pay back. So, I think we need to come up with a quick solution where the existing industry should not be further disturbed. She should go into full production, and whatever is left in the country and whatever the system is rolling, we should not come to that level that unfortunately we see a chapter 11 or close downs.
Right, and Jalisa, you mentioned the single window, but can you help me understand how successful that model has been if you're talking about the way that it hasn't really been backed by the kind of support and systems that we need? So is it just an optical measure at the moment?
I met the gentleman today during the seminar, but believe me, the single window has not been marketed very well. I think hardly anybody knows.
But you think it's working? Is
I
it just a marketing problem?
I have to go and check on the website because today I heard it about it.
Okay.
And I met the gentleman. I even didn't know that single window is working. So I think it needs to be marketed. The problem with Pakistan is that nothing gets marketed properly. I mean, Pakistan has been demarketed everywhere, but the positive marketing is not taking place inside and outside. I think we have to change our images, the mindset.
Right.
We have to invest more money in promoting this beautiful motherland of ours.
Sure. Yes, Farooq.
Right. Regarding one window operation and all these complications of authorities creating problem and red tapes, there are two aspects which are very important to understand. No matter how much we want actually one window to actually prevail, there are 2 or 3 complicating factors that we almost always forget. When we are talking about government, we are talking as a single entity. It might have many departments which actually go for licensing or giving you certification, but we are thinking only on one level. But that is not the case any longer after 18th Amendment. Pakistan is a federation which is supposed to have 3 tiers of government. The federal government has its own concerns, then there is a provincial government, and finally there is supposed to be local government. There are examples where we are trying to actually fast track and improve the quality of one window operation, especially when it comes to CPECs, SEZs. That is where we are trying to do it, but we are usually end up doing it the wrong way. Why? Because the lowest level of our, lowest tier of our power is the weakest rather than being the strongest. If we are working with China, China's example is bottoms up. It is not top to bottom. Their local governments actually create the environment that is needed for any kind of business. Of course, that happens in coordination with the center, with the state or provinces, governments as well. But they have empowered the local governments a lot, and that actually really helps a lot. And regarding corruption as well and red tape, I was listening to Raza Rumi, one of our common friend, and of course he has been appearing on this television, a career bureaucrat. He was before becoming a teacher, a pedagogue. But he was talking about the corruption in Pakistan. There are 2 ways to actually indulge in corruption. He says the biggest money is made either in procurement or then developmental funds. So how do you actually restructure those is a big issue. My concern is that no matter what you're doing, offload as many departments as possible, as many liabilities as possible, and then restructure your regulators. If you do that with the consultation of private sector, with the consultation of private watchdogs, you will get the results that are needed. But beware, India's GST example, where they try to merge the three layers of government into one to ensure that there is a goods and services tax, it is not going very well. So you'll have to learn from their mistakes as well.
Absolutely, and we really hope that we can make the kind of changes that the country requires. Thank you, Farokh, and thank you, Mr. Ananchani, for joining us. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but the discussion will continue with regards to Pakistan's economic situation, which is, of course, a huge priority for all of us, and we hope we move in the right direction. That's all from the debate. See you tomorrow.